Everybody, thanks for joining us today. This is a second in our series of podcasts, and today we have a special guest with us, Patrick Spink, and Patrick's going to talk a little bit about his participation in our event series earlier this year in June. He is a mountain athlete and a participant, and you'll see a photograph there of Patrick and his son, Nick, and we're going to visit with Patrick today. Also from the IronHike side, we have the co-founder, Scott Festa, and the co-founder, Clifford Anders. And you might remember Scott Festa as the first and only DNFer on the Olympus Mons event, and then finally the first finisher in just over 60 hours. So say hi, Scott.
Hey, y'all.
Yeah, there's Scott with his famous yellow hat. Say hi, Cliff.
Hello.
There's Cliff. And then with that, Patrick, we're going to begin our conversation for the podcast.
Sounds great. Thanks for
having
me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. So you participated with us in June in Connecticut at Mohawk Mountain in our second ever IronHike Endurance Series. And which event did you do? And you came with your son, right? And you guys flew in from Georgia, didn't you? All the way up to Connecticut.
Yep, flew in from Atlanta. We attempted Denali, and it was kind of when we originally had started. It was kind of one of those nights when we were out with the boys, and I had talked to people in my in this group about a book that I had heard on Mike Rowe called "The Comfort Crisis." And in that book, The Comfort Crisis, the author speaks of a misogi, and a misogi is something that you set out to do with a good likelihood that you may not be able to finish, and the good likelihood that you're going to really have to kind of stress yourself or put yourself through some tests. And I talked about the IronHike, and that was something I was thinking about doing. Was looking for, somebody to push me over the edge. And my son, I think begrudgingly later on, like a few days later, after he had waken up and found out that he might have had a little bit too much to consume that night, said, "I'll do it with you."
Nice.
So we kind of buckled him in, and we headed north in June. So yeah, I got started.
It's great to have you guys. So you have an interesting backstory that kind of connects you to us, right?
Yep. So John, you and I are kind of on a Facebook closed group for cardiac arrest survivors, and I came across you and your efforts in doing the Appalachian Trail. As a result of my cardiac arrest, I kind of, I was actually running. I was using an app called Couch to 5K. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that.
Yeah,
but
very familiar.
It's progressively a little more difficult. And I've started a nonprofit organization, and I tell my story all the time about using the Couch to 5K app. And I tell people, be careful with week 4 because it'll kill you. So I was on week 4, fell victim to cardiac arrest, and
while on the plan.
Yeah, while on the plan. Yeah.
Wow. So you overdid it. In my case, I underdid it. That's why I had a cardiac arrest.
Yeah. No, yes. I had overdid it. The Widowmaker was 99.9% calcified, and it already kind of started creating its own, bypasses on its own. And once I got to week 4, it just said I'm tapping out, and that was kind of it.
This was at some sort of an event, or where were you?
We were actually running in a park. We were running in the park, and
just training.
I'm sorry.
Just training, right?
Just training. Running towards me in the opposite direction was a husband and wife. The wife never wanted to run in the park. She preferred the treadmill, but for whatever reason, this particular day she decided to run with me. And he had his baby in the stroller, and he was running towards me and saw me go down. And he called for his wife to come over. She knew exactly what was going on because she's a cardiac nurse. So she immediately started doing CPR on me, and 2 others ended up joining me and did it for about 20 minutes. So I guess about maybe once I got to the point where I could get up and start moving around and walking again, I pretty much recognized I wasn't going to run again. That was not cut out for me. But I really decided that hiking and just being outdoors is something I wanted to kind of get back into. So that's how you and I connected. I saw what you were doing with the IronHike, and was really intrigued with it. I think the first year it was kind of like, in passing, I saw it. You guys had done a lot of marketing and whatnot, and it really kind of piqued my interest again this second round. And I said, what the heck? My son said, let's do it. And there we are. That's how I got there.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your backstory. So you flatlined that day, right?
Yep, 20 minutes.
Yeah. Did they do an intervention in cardiac care? Did you get stents or what? Surgery?
Nope, the triple bypass, baby. They opened me up and said,
Zipper Club.
yeah, it's kind of when you go
Wow.
go to get your timing belt done on your car, and they say, while we're in, we're going to go ahead and replace the water pump. It was like, hey, while we're in here, we're going to go ahead and
So when
bypass.
I see you in June, I want to see your zipper. I didn't get to see it.
You want some?
No. So thanks for sharing the backstory. So you went from flatline to IronHike, and we know how it turned out, but how about if you tell us how it turned out? Tell us about well, before you do that, so you told us a little bit about the decision. You're not going to run again.
Nope, not going to run again.
It's your thing. So you saw us and you decided to sign up. So how did it go for you and your son? Tell me how it went.
I will be perfectly honest, and for your viewers out there, or the viewers that are out there, if you'll look behind John, that's kind of what I've referred to as the landing zone. And leading up to this, I live in, North Georgia, and there's plenty of mountains around here. And I was hiking, I hike or walk every day, 4 miles a day, pretty religiously. On long weekends, I might go do like Currahee Mountain, and it's 3 miles up, 3 miles down. I did that 2 or 3 times in a row one day, just kind of training for it. So when we pulled up in the parking area and I saw the quote unquote landing zone, I kind of laughed and thought, oh, this is going to be a layup, man. That's going to be, I mean, nothing I've been up is like, that's child's play.
Yeah, it's deceiving.
I was wrong.
This is the only somewhat flat area. Behind those bushes, it gets pretty gnarly, right?
Yep, I can contest to that. I will 100% contest to that. It gets pretty crazy after that. Looks like John might have frozen up there, but that's okay. We can kind of keep talking and wait for him to come back in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that I 100% undertrained for that event. Although I thought I had done a really good job of training for the event. So it was kind of interesting. And
Can you guys hear me now?
Yep, hear you loud and clear. Your video is frozen, but we can hear you.
Okay. Hopefully I'm not making a weird face.
No, you're pointing to the bell. It's perfect.
So tell me about your son and how it progressed. So Denali is it's a
48 hours.
48-hour event, right?
43 miles in 48 hours.
Yep. And so you guys did it together, but not as a relay, not as a flex relay. You were doing individually together, alone together, right?
Yeah, well, we originally planned on doing it individually. And as the event kept getting closer and closer, and it was ready for us to kind of commit, when I say what it's time for us to commit, when it was time for Dad to commit to the paying of the trip and whatnot, I'm like, are you in? Are you 100% in? And he's like, maybe not. I haven't been training as much as I had hoped. So I hope to. I kind of twisted his arm a little bit and said, hey, man, you're going to be here to support me as much as anything else. As a result, we ended up doing the relay. And we kind of messed up on planning, and that was my fault. I just really kind of thought 48 hours, we'll fly in on, I don't remember, Friday nights when we're going to fly in, and then we'll fly out Sunday morning or Monday morning. So we did not count for the full 48 hours. We really should have planned better on the 48-hour thing. Hindsight 2020. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I did the same thing on the first go around, being the first my first folly into it, where I totally, so many things that were just a downward spiral that led to, I'd love to tell you it was just the rain and it was just the blisters and it was just the wet, but there were so many other things that kind of led to that you just didn't even think about.
Yeah.
And then you look back and you go, oh, I should have did this, or I should have done this, or I should have done.
Exactly. We flew out early Monday morning.
Yep. And that was then and me going back the second time, actually. So yeah.
Yep. So we were, I think I finished my half, which is really what I was striving to do. I was like, hey, if I'm going to finish some of it, I'm going to finish at least my half. And at that point it was like, he was kind of hanging at the bottom with you, Scott. And like, he had no more desire to be there anymore, and kind of like I'm making him kind of sit here and watch me, and I'm not really anxious to let him do that. So we kind of tapped out, but it was a great event.
So tell us, but I was actually very inspired by some of the. I mean, there was a metamorphosis with your son when he got on his first lap. I saw him at the summit. I was at the summit checking on something, and boy, he just looked done on the first lap. And there was some encouragement that I gave him and other people gave him early on, and then later, a couple laps later, I saw him, and he had a buff on his head. He had an attitude on his face. He had a scowl going, and he was killing it. And I thought, man, it's a perfect example of choice. Like he made the decision that he was going to give it his best effort, and it was obvious.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him. I literally asked him who he was, and he was
Exactly.
Like, oh.
He looked so different when he made the choice.
Yeah.
Like, on the second, third, fourth lap, when I saw him at the summit, he had a black bandana or a black headgear on, and he just had a scowl on his face, like, I'm going to get this. And so tell us the rest of the story. Like, there's also an interesting backstory about Nick and his evolution to get there. A little bit about the backstory. I mean, if you could, Patrick, about why you chose to do it with him. And part of this was a kind of a spiritual event for you guys in a way.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The other part of that cardiac arrest thing is Nick was the one that was holding my head while the nurses were doing CPR.
You're not going to make me cry, dude. I promise. Yeah. I'm trying not to. Go ahead.
Really holding my head. There were 3 people eventually that got to me and were starting, performing CPR on me. The nurse, the husband looked at the nurse and kind of asked, like, is he good? Give him thumbs up. And she's like, no, he's gone. And I already turned purple, kind of relieved myself. And she's like, he's gone. But the only reason that I'd always told people that I had 3 guardian angels that day that saved my life, and all of them were in the right place at the right time. But after years of telling that story and thinking about it, that one nurse said that the only reason that she kept going was because Nick was there, and she didn't want to have to be the one to say, there's nothing we can do. I'm going to let the EMTs do it. So in reality, I had one guardian angel there, and it was Nick. That was my son. And had he not been there holding my head saying, you got this, Dad, you got this, you can do it. IronHike would have been, something I would have never seen. So, he suffered a little bit of PTSD. PTSD, as I'm sure that you guys can imagine. I'm not in the military. I've never gone through anything like that before. So I'm sure you guys.
The experience for him to be right next to you, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. He had recently, had some issues that he was going through, and it was, kind of wearing on him pretty heavily. And I'm like, it's time for you to just get out of Atlanta. Let's just go. Let's go. We're not going to know anybody. There's nothing to worry about. Let's just go. I don't know if that worried either one of us, to be perfectly honest. We're both pretty outgoing. So not knowing anyone was not really a big deal at all. And I will say that when we got there, I would say after 10 minutes, we knew everybody. So we weren't strangers. You guys were very
approachable group of folks, for sure.
Very supportive, just the whole thing. Scott, I commend you, man. I can't thank you enough for pushing Nick to kind of get out of his comfort zone. He asked me, I think on like the second lap down, how many laps do I have left? And my son asked me. I said, well, I think I've got 2 left. So Scott, I think you said, is he going to go with you? I'm like, man, that's dad telling his son to do something. The chances of that happening is likely 0 to none, right? That's why the fishermen used to fish with their uncles, because the kids would never listen to their dads, right?
Right.
So Scott went down and had a good long conversation, or a short conversation, with Nick. And the next thing I knew, on my last lap up, Nick went straight up and we went right to the top. It was phenomenal.
Honestly.
I'm sorry, say it again, Scott.
I think I only said 3 words to him.
Yeah, you did. Let me lead up to the 3 words. So I was at the base at this time, and he was done, and Patrick, you were still at it. You were trying to get your half done, and everyone just knew that you guys had did not finish. You DNF'd, and you know, one of the things about what we do is we really don't make people feel bad about what they didn't do. We try to make you feel great about the fact that you showed up, that you got up and down that mountain as many times as you could, and that you became part of a new tribe, like by being part of our new family, right? That was the big thing that I kept trying to focus on. And although I did see that he had resigned, right, like he wasn't interested anymore, and I really thought, and Scott said he said 3 words, but I think Scott said some other things. I think the most significant thing that he said, possibly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, is that, look, man, your dad's out there, and these sort of memories are made once. And so there's going to come a day where you'll regret not doing your dad's last lap with him. So, hey, man, fuck your hip. And so that's how it ended. And man, I got choked up when he put his shit on and he came up to the base, to that bell right there, and stood with you, and you guys took off. I got to tell you, I was very taken by that moment. And I thought to myself, this is why we do this. This is why we have this sort of artificial environment where people can test their limits and push themselves. This is why we're building this. And I thought it was super powerful. Sorry, Scott, I took your fuck your hip thunder from you, but that's
No.
you said leading up to that was very powerful, especially about memories, right? Because we've all lost people.
Yeah.
And one day he's going to really lose you, right? Like if our kids outlive us, right?
Right.
He's going to really lose you. And that was an opportunity for a memory, right?
Yeah.
And he seized it. And he seized it. And I was real proud of him too.
There was something else that was really, really kind of a special moment and Scott, I think you, and I don't remember who you were walking with, you kind of stayed a little bit back behind us, and thank you. You loaned me your hiking poles, your trekking poles for that trip up, and I thank you for that. But you guys kind of stayed a little bit behind, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but you were giving us a little bit of space, whatnot. And there was one point where Nick stopped, and I'm like, man, just take your time, whatever you got to do, we'll get it there, go at your pace, whatever. And we stopped at some point. I said, hey, did you notice those tiny little wildflowers right there on the trail? He's like, no, dude, I hadn't seen anything. I'm like, that's life. You're so worried about the big things in life. You're so worried about all the things you can't do. You never, ever slow down to take a look at the smaller things in life, the beauty in the life and the beauty of just being alive. Those are the things that you really have to stop and appreciate, because otherwise you're going to look at the summit and go, shit, I'm never going to get there. Right? Yeah. You got to stop and take a look. You got to enjoy the trek. You can't worry about trying to get to the summit.
Yeah, it was definitely the journey, right? And so it begs the next question: are you coming back? And if so, when?
Yeah. I know you were pushing me to go in October, but October I can't make it. It's a big time here in Georgia. It's college football, SEC. So SEC doesn't matter anymore this year, but it's college football year, right? Weather's finally cooled off. It's phenomenal. So we'll be there in June. And Scott just took off. So adios, Scott. So yeah, I'll be back there in June, and I will 100% be doing the Denali again.
Individually?
Yep, I'm gonna do the individual. I've already got the hill out front. I'm just gonna go up and down that joker as many times as I possibly can, in the month or so leading up to it. And I guess if there's any words of advice for the people that are viewing and anticipating going to this, you can't undertrain. You can't overtrain, excuse me. They're just, it's I don't want to scare people off thinking that it's a lot, but I don't want you to be. I came into it walking, 5 miles a day, thinking I was great. It was going to be a piece of cake. And I got there and was like, wow, those 5 miles a day that I was walking aren't the same as elevation. And it's all about elevation gain.
So it gets real on the second lap, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it gets real fast. As you know, I'm going to try to drink some of our own champagne, and I'm trying to do Everest.
Yeah.
And so Cliff's I think Cliff's doing Denali as well, maybe Denali or Double Dome.
I'm the double dome. I'm going to do the double dome.
Yeah, and so we're going to try to run the event series in October, but also participate. And I'm training like crazy right now with a weighted vest. I'm lifting weights. I'm doing all sorts of stuff because I know, I know what we built, and it's no joke.
Right.
So look, we appreciate your time today. We consider you part of our family. Thanks for sharing the intimate details of your story. You know, kind of the spiritual journey that you and Nick went on to be with us. And like I say, we'll look forward to seeing you in June. We have a couple of cool changes coming in June. We're staggering the start, so like the elite athletes start on Thursday morning, and everyone starts. So then I think Olympus Mons starts Thursday morning. Everest starts Thursday night. Denali starts Friday night. Double Dome starts Saturday night, and then Klingman's Dome starts Sunday morning. And everybody's target time is 7 p.m. on Sunday. So you're going to have this growing community of people in the middle of their struggle, right? In the middle of their artificial adversity.
Right.
And I think it's really going to be awesome because it's going to create a lot of interesting bonds. And so we're real excited about that. So we're excited to have you join us in June for that.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see. Got a couple other people that have been scratching their head going, what's this all about? So I might have a couple additional people joining me this year or next year.
Bring the entourage. Bring the entourage with you.
Yep.
For sure. And bring Nick back. Maybe put Nick in an event with you. Maybe not the same one. Maybe
I'll try.
He starts with Klingman's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe you his sister they do Klingman's together in a trail buddy relay or something.
There you go.
Yeah. So appreciate you. Any closing statements at all, Patrick? Words of wisdom?
I would say, John, thank you guys for hosting this event. It's since that event, I've looked around to see what other kind of things are around in my area and whatnot. There aren't any. So, you guys are doing a good job. I think you're really onto something, and it's a phenomenal event for people to kind of push themselves, meet new friends. It's just a great event.
Yeah, appreciate you. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll close out.
Thanks, Patrick. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah, all right. You bet, Cliff. Take care. John, we'll talk to you later. Have a great night.
All right. See you on the mountain.